After all these years, we may finally have a crack in this cold case. And it's thanks to all of you that I was able to make all these connections. With your help, I was able to find 5 more ancestors to add in Sly 5. With my last Sly Cooper video, I got a lot of comments about everyone's ideas of ancestors or game mechanics or whatever. I think the most appropriate way to start this video is to start with the tutorial itself. It was suggested to do the cookie heist from Sly's orphanage days. Not only would this be a good way to cap off the series, we get to see the friendship form between Sly, Bentley, and Murray, but also set up for a story that could be told with all the ancestors. We can see them form their personality traits like Sly's confidence, Murray's fear, or Bentley's intelligence, at least before all their character development. There were other suggestions, but we'll get to those and go into more detail about the tutorial later. For now, let's go into our first ancestor. In my first video, I talked about some time periods that were not covered in the ancestors that have been shown to us. The example I gave was 1920s America, with a Bonnie and Clyde ancestor named Bonnie and Slide. Well, another time period would be the American Revolution. I can see the ancestor being Native American, or an American settler. After all, raccoons are native to North America. And no, I haven't forgotten that Sly has ancestors from all over the globe before this time period. I'm just saying that a North American raccoon just makes sense. Sly's ancestor could steal supplies from the British or from elsewhere to support the American troops. The enemy could definitely be the British forces. Perhaps the gang will be able to help with the pivotal battle in the war, and that's the whole episode. Perhaps the episode could happen before the war. Sly and the gang can help with the Boston Tea Party or different protests. I think for a costume, Sly would have a powdered wig and a violin, considering this was the music of the time. And most of the costumes weren't directly correlated, but similar to the time period. This costume would lull guards into a sleep and unlock locks that open with tones in a certain order. Some sort of music locks. I don't know if these locks would lead to treasures like in Sly 4, or my preference, hidden bottles or some special abilities, because treasures aren't really my thing. In general, when I thought of this area, it felt very Assassin's Creed. But they don't own history. However, you'll feel like I'm really just copying Assassin's Creed with this next era, because the next time period is the Renaissance. It will be a little different because the gang will visit William Shakespeare in his theater. The ancestor will be one of his actors. They'll use their traveling of the shows and costume to be their cover for their escapades. The villain could be someone trying to upstage and replace the ancestor. Their motivation is to prevent the ancestor from stealing and ruin their legacy. Perhaps the villain copies the acting cover of the ancestor to steal their own stuff and frame the ancestor in the process. Although I don't talk about the heists of the episodes much, I can see the episode leading up to a one big play or an opening night performance. I can see Sly's costume of the period being a backstage worker, like that can pull ropes and lift and drop items to unlock new areas or treasures. Maybe Sly can ride the ropes to the top of different areas. Use his backstage knowledge to traverse all over the level. I don't know. The ancestors' power of costumes and accents to fit any situation where they can look and sound exactly like other people. I can also see a return of Sly's Italian accent, and the ancestor being appalled at it, and maybe give them tips on how to do it better. If you thought my ideas were too similar to Assassin's Creed, well, this one is the exact opposite, because the next time period would be World War II. Assassin's Creed would never. Anyways, World War II is a time period that a lot of people love to see in video games, but there is a specific aspect of the war I would like to highlight. A lot of times, Sly's ancestors are based off of famous thieves throughout history. You have Tennessee based off of Billy the Kid, Salim al-Kupar based off of Ali Baba. This ancestor would be based off of something I would consider thief adjacent. It's similar to a big heist. In World War II, some men were tasked with recovering priceless works of art that the Nazis had stolen during the war. They made a movie about their endeavors named The Monuments Men. I thought of this type of episode because it reminds me of stealing from a master criminal to prove they are a master thief. The whole episode could be like a giant art heist. The villain could be trying to hide the art for themselves. Maybe it's working with the Nazis or a Nazi themselves. The Ancestor could be a museum curator to serve in the war, or just have World War II soldier vibes. If they were a curator, they could have a ton of knowledge about art, like which is the most valuable. Or maybe the army conscripted the Ancestor because they knew a Cooper could pull off the heist. Perhaps among the works of art are references to all the past Ancestors. One of the best parts of Sly 4 was Tennessee and his gun. If there was ever a place to bring another gun, it would be here. I can see either the Ancestor or Sly's costume containing a gun power. Tennessee could shoot very fast, as a quick draw was a staple of the Wild West. Maybe the Ancestor can use staples of World War II, like a flamethrower that burns obstacles in the way or scorches enemies from a distance. I can also see this being Sly's costume. Maybe the Ancestor can paint or sculpt what they need, like the Ancestor's cane is half paintbrush. Or maybe he can hammer through stone. I thought of giving Sly or the Ancestor a paratrooper power / costume because it fits World War II, but then I remembered fall damage isn't really a thing anymore, and Sly already has a paraglider. Maybe the Ancestor's gun power could be that of a sniper rifle, where he's able to shoot at long distance instead of shooting fast. I think it would be really funny to see Sly comment how weird it feels to work for the right side of the law. While going over the comments of my video, I had a few comments about my exclusion of Henriette Cooper, because people want more female ancestors. Happy Women's History Month. Honestly, I can see any of the above ancestors being a strong, independent woman. Another thing I thought of was more famous thieves to include in the story. One thief that stood out to me was Arsène Lupin. I don't know much about him, but I know he's very popular and famous. Plus, he's around Sherlock Holmes' time as a foil. So I thought Thaddeus Cooper would be the perfect fit for it. So maybe a reference to Lupin somewhere in the episode. Perhaps in the episode Sherlock is on the case as another antagonist. Basically like Thaddeus is Carmelita, in a platonic sense, but maybe history will just say they're really good friends. But I'm bearing the lead because if there was ever a famous thief to include in the games, it would have to be D.B. Cooper. I mean, come on. I don't think I need to explain why this needs to be included. D.B. Cooper is from 1971, so there is a couple of options of who this could be. My first thought that comes to mind is Connor Cooper, Sly's father. He could be D.B. In my last video, I suggested a level in the 70s with Connor. This could be Connor before he met the crew, or they were behind the scenes during the heist. The problem arises because Sly's father is named Connor, not a D name. If they don't want to, I could see DB being maybe Connor's brother, or even wackier, Sly's mother in disguise. I saw a lot of comments of people wanting to see Sly's mother. I think that would be cool, no matter how she appears. Whether as a side character or a main part of the story, D.B. Cooper would be a fun way for her to make an appearance. In my last video, I came up with a time period that no canon ancestor was in, but I neglected one time period that didn't even occur to me, and a lot of people called it out. I even got a lot of different ideas of how this time period should be done, but one of the most popular time periods that people hoped for was the future. I honestly don't know how it didn't even cross my mind. The one idea I like the most, for reasons I'll get into later, is a descendant that's a robot that downloaded the Thievius Raccoonus and has all the knowledge and skills of the Sly family. The descendant's power is that he can transform his body to fit his needs. Maybe to walk on a rope with his feet, he can turn his feet into a wheel to roll on the rope. The transformations don't stop there, because on top of transforming his body to copy the Sly family moves, he also transforms to account for all kinds of new moves. The robot could shrink to fit through cracks or small holes. The robot can even transform to traverse different terrain, maybe like scuba with propellers to tread water or go underwater. It can go from legs to rocket boosters to fly. Finally, it can turn into a drill to tunnel underground to subterranean areas. I can see its arms transform into its cane, or even Ancestor's cane to perform their moves. When Sly and the gang travel to the future, it would be funny for the robot to know who Sly is and nerd out, just like Sly did to all of his ancestors. I'm unsure if Sly would be a little weirded out or even vain about interacting with the robot, but my money would be on him being vain. I can also see Bentley nerding out the whole episode with cool tech everywhere, and even Bentley and the robot being bros. With the future being uncertain, the plot and villain could literally be anything. I think the most important aspect would be the question of whether this robot could be considered a true descendant, with the robot proving themselves by the end and earning Sly's respect. The villain or objective could challenge that question. Now, Sly's costume, being from the future, opens up so many possibilities considering many interpretations of future events. An obvious choice would be a device to turn Sly digital. If Sly could turn digital, he can jump into electronics or electrical currents. If the future looks like a new Neo-Tokyo and there's screens everywhere, Sly can traverse flat surfaces or cross vast chasms. Sly would also be able to take over various machines, maybe a turret, construction equipment, or any number of future tech. This episode can go into so many directions, it's hard to pick exactly what it would look like. I know a lot of people gave their thoughts on what the future Ancestor would be, but I would love to hear your thoughts on what the future would look like or style, and what Sly's costume would look like. Before I get into my last time period, there is a couple of miscellaneous items to cover. We know that Penelope is on the loose. We also know clockwork comes from all the way back in ancient Egypt. I suggested Sly running into clockwork before he turned. However, I did not put two and two together. Clockwork became mechanical bit by bit to live forever. Now here's the question. How did clockwork become so mechanical with ancient Egyptian tech? This could be the setup that Penelope, being a machinist, was the one to help create clockwork. I think this may have been a real plot point that Sanzaro was building towards in the Egypt DLC. Another idea I had in between videos is that we can utilize time travel to have all the past villains be the villains of each episode. And it's a question of who we should put as those past villains. I mean, if Clockwork is the main antagonist again, perhaps we can have all the bird villains come back and it's just like the Birds of a Feather gang, because there's apparently a lot of bird villains. Or we can do villains that are like Sly's greatest hits, his greatest adversaries that one-upped him or had given him a real challenge. Thought of specifically was the Contessa. Maybe she's coming back as a corrupt cop in the 1920s bank robber episode, or use her hypnotism to win the crowds in the theater of Shakespeare. General Sal could be working for the British in the Revolutionary War, or maybe a gladiatorial champion in the Roman era I suggested. The Ancestor could even be a gladiator themselves. Raleigh is a jack of all trades. He can fit in so many areas. Coming from a life of luxury, he could fit super well in Victorian England and fly under the radar. Being a machinist, Raleigh would go absolutely ham in the future. Of course, the most obvious choice for Raleigh is the golden age of piracy with Henriette. But as I mentioned last time, I don't think more pirates would be as exciting. Clockwork could obviously come back for the Egypt level or the 70s France level, causing a bunch of problems. Other villains I think would be good are Lafouille, Dr. M, Arpeggio, and or El Jefe. It would be nice to see more of Arpeggio since he didn't have any time to shine. Maybe he goes to the Renaissance because he studied that time extensively. It also would be hard to put a villain in the World War II episode, but I feel like the best fit would be El Jefe. I unfortunately don't know a good fit for a past villain to go up against Slay either. Finally, as I was reflecting on my last video, an idea began to form. One thing I mentioned was the dilemma that Sly would face when going back to visit his father. Does he save his father? Or not? If Sly were to save his father, what would the ramifications be? I can see Sly, after saving his father in the time stream on his way home, being attacked by an almost destroyed Clockwork. This would separate him from the rest of the group, sending him careening through the time stream. When Sly wakes, he finds himself in a different world. This new level would be an alternate present-day Paris. This alternate timeline would be very dystopian. It would look very run down, but at the same time very guarded. Paris is now being overrun by the infamous Black Brainiac. Paris has been overrun for a long time, so much so that a resistance has risen up in opposition. The resistance is headed up by Carmelita, Constable Neela, Dimitri, an aged Connor Cooper, and maybe, disabled Dr. M shows up. All of them look like the bandits from Fallout, or a mix of bandits and, Mad Max. Very raggedy, but also very resourceful. That's how Sly starts the level. Searching for answers, he runs into flashlight guards telling him he's in a restricted zone. As the guards chase him, he is saved by Carmelita. Sly is ecstatic to see her, but she doesn't recognize him. In fact, she mistakes him for Connor Cooper. When Sly meets with the resistance leaders, he learns about how Black Brainiac took over, their efforts to stop them, and how this timeline Sly died trying to stop Black Brainiac. Upon hearing all of this, Sly realizes something went terribly wrong and he needs to get back to the time machine. He asks the leaders if they know where Bentley or Murray is. None of them know their names. Desperate for more answers, Sly looks into this Black Brainiac. With Sly all alone, he manages to get captured, and he is brought before the Black Brainiac. One of their bodyguards is Mugshot, and the other is bigger and meaner than he is. Before Sly can get his bearings, a mech tromps into the room. When the mech gets into the focal point of the room, it opens to reveal Bentley. But just like the others, this Bentley is different. This Bentley is more cold and calculated, and more importantly, can still walk. Sly tries to reason with him and jog his memory to remind him of their escapades. He mentions the past games, all the times Bentley rescued them, and the orphanage. Bentley is confused and not hearing it. But when Sly mentions the orphanage, Bentley gets angry. He demands to know how Sly knows that name. When Sly explains how they met, Bentley gets more upset. Bentley finally demands Sly be taken care of. The bigger bodyguard steps forward and Sly gets a good look at him. It's Murray, but this Murray locked in. He is not the jovial dude Sly knows, but is silent, determined, and intimidating. Murray is jacked and has scars all over his face from all the scraps he's been in. Right as Murray is going to crush Sly, a flying mech crashes through a window and grabs Sly and flies out. When they land, Penelope steps out of the mech, furious with Sly, demanding to know what he did. Turns out Penelope, after helping the villains, headed back to the present day herself. She got out of her time machine, and by the time she realized what had happened, she found that her time machine was discovered and confiscated by Bentley's guards. She explains to Sly that something very wrong changed the time stream, and they discovered that the thing that changed was Sly saving his father. When Sly saved his father, it meant Sly never became an orphan and never gets sent to the orphanage. That means Bentley and Murray were left there, alone, and this caused them to resent the world and caused them to go down a dark path and take over the world. The only way to fix it is to go back in a time machine and fix it. The only time machine is Penelope's, and she can't get it alone. She needs a thief. They need to work together to fix this. Penelope does not want to work with Sly, but it pains her to see Bentley being this miserable. It's not the best idea, but this is the one way Penelope could redeem herself. In this episode, it can be discovered that she resented Sly when he left them at the end of Sly 3. She clearly cared about Sly, and despite it not being romantic, I can still see her being hurt that he abandoned them. It may not be the real reason she turned, but it could make sense with the present narrative. She could be brought back to the good side by seeing Sly care and try to save Bentley. The main goal of this episode is obviously infiltrate Bentley's stronghold and get the time machine working with Penelope and the Resistance. The costume for the episode would be Sly dressing like a drifter. This is to blend in as a drifter could fit the aesthetic of the level. I think the look would be like the handkerchief on a stick. What are the powers? No clue. Maybe something with a harmonica, can opener, can of beans, I don't know, something. The Ancestor could be Sly's father again, but he's older and more experienced. When they go back in time to stop past Sly from saving Connor, I can see this going two ways. Sly chooses to give up his father to save his friends, or, and I think this could be fun, he still saves Connor and leaves a note to adopt Bentley and Murray. This is why I made the choices I did in this video. Sly's story throughout all the games focuses on his family so heavily, so the game could explore that. What is a family? Who is part of that family? What about a found family? This was mentioned in the robot comment, and it got my brain spinning. Having the cookie heist tutorial adds more weight. Having an alternate timeline makes Sly choose between his father or his friends. Or he can make them an official part of the family. The love Sly has for his friends could bring Penelope back. I think this could be a nice way to cap the whole series. It started with those three and ends with them. The game would emphasize the value of Bentley and Murray, but more importantly, their value to Sly. Some real, I'm with you to the end of the line kind of stuff. I don't know if I can fully convey the gravity of their relationship, but I feel like the game could. Bentley and Murray deserve to be at the very least honorary Cooper clan members. The last idea I was given was the title. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I really thought it was cool that you guys checked out the last one, and I loved all of the input and just wanted to include all of you in the video as well. If you want to check out more video game stuff, I talk about like Kingdom Hearts, Pokemon. I do want to talk about more games eventually. We'll catch you later. Bye.